And g'day, welcome to Writing Corner, and I'm the author, David Applegate, and this is my writing journey where I share tips, hints, and other stuff that I've learned along the way to improve my writing and hopefully to help you improve yours. If you like what you see, please like, share, and of course, subscribe. Don't forget with YouTube to select notifications or you will not be notified. My links are in the description below. I have a link tree with all my links organized. If you'd like to buy my books, support the channel, I have Patreon where you get advanced access to my writing and artwork. I also do RPG stuff, tabletop gaming as well. And of course, today's show is about the prologue, how to write a prologue. Now, of course, what is a prologue? Well, it's a literary device to arouse the reader's interest and to provide a hint what's to come. If you have a slow start, and you often find this in fantasy, an introduction to the action to come, or a preview of action that directly relates to the first couple of chapters. But it's found at the beginning of literary work. It's separate from the main story, and it's set before the first chapter. It's to introduce important information such as background details or characters that have a connection to the main story, but the relevance is not immediately noted. Like you can take out of my book the introduction to the characters. You may not see the immediate relevance, and it may not play even at all, but it sets the tone of a space empire that is coming to the end of one age and beginning anew. Now, prologue comes from the Greek prolos, meaning before word, and they actually used to use prologues frequently in theatre, where you would have an announcer give you the introduction to the events that preceded the play. Well, prologues are actually were initially a sort of device only used by Greek playwrights and poets, but it has spread primarily through fantasy stories, although you find them in science fiction as well. Some call them a cliche, but they are important. They do actually serve an integral purpose to fiction writing. Chaucer was the one who introduced it in Canterbury Tales, who introduced 24 stories written between 1387 and 1400. He used the prologue as a roadmap for the entire work, which of course covers the story of pilgrims on their way to Canterbury and gives an intricate insight into that world. Now, a good prologue has four functions. One, it foreshadows events to come, provides the backstory of the central conflict, establishes the point of view. It is going to be from the main characters or a character privy to the tale, basically a narration, or of course, neutral observer. You are the observer. You are God. Now, of course, ultimately, it sets the tone And of course, you have a prologue, preface, forwards, and introductions. Now, preface is traditionally the author's explanation. It's a narration written by the author. A forward is written by a third party, a critic, a material expert to give the reader context. Now, this is whereas an introduction again is introductions are a factual reference to introduce the historical context. They're all prologues. They just have basically, yes, prologue is part of the story where the others are not. Prologues have been found in Romeo and Juliet, as I said, Chaucer, Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, Jurassic Park, many works of fiction, primarily fantasy works, have used prologues. Some of Jurassic Park actually had two. Now, prologue can be great. It could also be a bomb. It depends on you. Now, one of the things is, I think, if you're thinking of a prologue, include it in your draft, but amend it last. Complete the main story, complete the editing. I found it's best to, if you're going to do a prologue, to do it last, but at least have some idea of what you're going to say. Now, a lot of prologues have been used to introduce the main character, where the character, or have the main character in a play introduce himself and introduce what the characters are going to be. Another one, this is often used in crime thrillers, is the prologue tells you about the setting. Centuries ago, there was a city. Pilgrims would come from all over and sort of describe the types of pilgrims and pilgrimages and why and so forth. Though it ties to the main story, you basically don't have to keep referencing an exact detail, blow by blow, of a pilgrimage. You don't know what a pilgrimage is. You don't have to. And you know the story is going to be about pilgrimage and crime drama. Gotham, in the opening of Gotham, in the sort of a lot of Batman has good prologues where they're showing you James Bond too, prologues in James Bond. A lot of movies actually had prologues where you had an opening sequence where you're seeing something and it's sort of introducing the character, but it's not it's only connected to the story by the character is in it, and it sets the mood. Prologue needs to be relevant, not an info dump. Do you know the questions you're going to answer in a prologue? That is it. You're going to go ask yourself, what does the reader need to know? And sometimes, I do it myself. Some people say I over-describe. Other people love my descriptions. It's very hard to measure. Some people really want this real minimalist. Like, instead of saying, I know we once were friends, they'll cut it down to once we were friends, just... I know these days, particularly where articles are per word, you get flowery prose and everything, or you have to read the entire article to find out that it's an opinion piece, or you in a prologue you don't want opinions. You want to introduce the factual character, and you've got to ask yourself, is it necessary? I think one of the best prologues is, of course, the introduction to Jurassic Park. It sort of starts off like a legal document about, and it sets the tone. It sort of really lures you in, like a man being treated for an injury. The doctor's describing how he's been mauled from an animal, and then the man wakes up and says one word, raptor. So it sets the tone, it sets the scene, and it actually, I'm trying to think of another one where I think, was it U-5357 it was called, where a Russian submarine comes ashore in Switzerland. I can't remember the author. Just trying to think. I've read a number of books recently with prologues. Mostly prologues are used to set the scene. But of course, whether you're an authentic writer in the eyes of the writing community, or you're a hobbyist in your own eyes, we all want to become better writers. And many of us are trying to get attention of a publishing house. Now, many of us have not had the benefit of decades of writing Tahoe Mark Craft before making our first book. Some people have hit the mark on their first book, although we often find out, and I think I've mentioned this often, some people, when it comes to their first book, have been working on it for 20 years. And the problem is that then they get a book deal and only have 2 years to get their next book. And believe me, a lot of publishing houses, that first money you get is often enough to cover a ghostwriter to take your draft and your first book's manuscript and your ideas and turn it into a second, third book. Often they ask for trilogies these days. Trilogies used to be the big thing after the success of Star Wars. Not just Star Wars, because Star Wars wasn't the first successful trilogy. Lord of the Rings was, but we're talking about books, not success of movies. But now, the step-by-step process of a gripping narrative, crafting characters, creating and sustaining a reader interest, suspense, or thrilling, or in the case of fantasy, a good mix of imagination, fascination, investigation. Fantasy books are an exploration of a world, and there's a lot of people who craft books. So if you're going to, there's no point, if you're a fantasy writer, you're not going to try and learn, say, you're not going to worry too much about Romeo and Juliet unless you're a romance writer. Lolita is a odd insight into delusion, how to handle controversial subject matter, and of course, it is a character study on the evil that lurks, the quiet evil, which I think Lighthouse, trying to think of the other one that I've heard of or read, that takes the anticipation of evil, quiet evil. I think they used that Hitchcock used Lolita as an example in the building of the quiet mannered psycho. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Norman Bates, yes. The quiet mannered Norman Bates. Yeah, it was based on that. Jurassic Park is a sort of like modern sci-fi. You gotta pick your what's right for you for your writing style. It's just like improving your vocabulary. You gotta you gotta create your worksheet based on the 100 words you use the most and to find synonyms and ways to break up so that you're not using your top 100 words only to just, I mean, you've got to vary your vocabulary to about 15,000 words. It's not easy. It takes time. It could take up to decades. But if you're taking notes, if you're interested in a prologue to introduce a concept, to introduce the main characters, to drop hints about the story, first, you've got to make it about your main character. Two, you've got to drop hints about the story to come, giving a location. That somehow ties to the main plot. Something about that location you want the reader to go, I wonder what's interesting about this location and why these people are here. Prologues are often short, although sometimes they end up in a whole chapter. If a prologue becomes a chapter, it isn't a prologue. And you may cut it or use it, basically cut out all but the relevant details so that the reader is anticipating the story. It enhances, does not explain. It's not an info dump, although you do get info dumps like Jurassic Park, where sort of like not too much, but yeah. Another prologue is in June. This is where instead of a lot of chapters have little sayings, and those little sayings are setting the tone for that chapter, the purpose, the stories, the lessons. See, June initially was written as a warning about charismatic leaders and how Kennedy, Hitler, Mao, Stalin, all of them, whether it be in the eye, they're all, see, here's the problem. You may think somebody's a hero in your eyes, but in the eyes of many, some of these world leaders, especially charismatic world leaders, are quite villainous. The problem is when it's called the anchor of, oh, geez, it was on the tip of my tongue. Hold on. Anchor. Anchor of introduction. Oh, the anchor of is it the anchor of trust? Yes. It has actually many names. Truth, anchor of truth. Sorry, not trust. Anchor of truth. Anchor of trust. This is where, when you first meet somebody or first hear about someone or something, that experience becomes your perception of the individual. Now, if you learn something different, it can be quite upsetting. It's sometimes hard to accept and may actually distress you. So if you're writing a prologue, you want to, it's basically to establish perception, trust, and authenticity with, and a rather light on the mystery, but you do want the audience to ask themselves, I wonder what's important about this. And then later in the plot, remind them, particularly if there's a few key lines that are the same, and they go, yes, this country lane, now I get it. The person, well, in the case of my book, this sword, everybody thinks it's worth something or of great importance. They're in a desperate situation, looking desperately for advantages over each other. So the sword itself no longer becomes the relevant item. But other than that, no, the prologue is to enhance the story rather than explain it. You just want to establish a relationship between the reader and yourself. Other than that, I think thank you to the people watching over on Rumble. Please say hi. Give us a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking your time to watch me live. If you have questions, you can always leave a comment and I'll answer. And seems to be some confusion. I had a lot of people click the link. Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, I think I did say, I did give the time zone. I did say it was going to be GMT. Sorry to those who got confused about the time. Hopefully, you'll follow, watch the notifications. And yes, if you'd like to support the channel, my books, Patreon, PayPal, social media, and other links are in my link tree below. Let's see. Just give you a brief look at, yeah. Don't. Here we go. See, here we go. Look down here. We have link tree. course, I have my other links as well, but there we go. That's the Rumble, and of course, share. This is my link tree. So actually, no, what's in my link tree? I have it all sorted out. I have a video introduction to my books, a review, and then books 3, 2, 1. Like to support me, I have my Patreon, tabletop gaming links, buy me a coffee, Ko-Fi, PayPal, and my social media. Yeah, because we have both the primary Facebook, Twitter, as my primary Patreon link. You can send me a message, send me money, check me out on Amazon and YouTube. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for coming. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.